Just a heads up for those that care, Channel Pup's Mania Month is coming to an end soon, which is a fancy way of saying I have to go back to work and I won't have as much time to blitz upload constantly. I'm sorry about this, I'll still upload as regularly as possible, so please don't unsubscribe. I remember back in 2010, my parents and I sat around the TV watching Victory of the Daleks. I was a child back then, about 14 years old, very uncool. I had about just every single Dalek toy you could get sitting on my bedroom shelves, and I remember finishing the episode literally shaking with anger at the fact that my precious Daleks were all made redundant by this big, bulbous Technicolor abomination. Why, oh why, as they say. I jumped onto my dad's computer to try and figure out what just happened and what I just witnessed, to try and see if everyone else saw what I saw, and the Dalek fanbase, totally blown up. Every Facebook group was ranting about it, there were tons of petitions, and being the geeky kid that I was at that time, I signed every single one. I wrote fanfiction about them getting destroyed by the previous models, and I made my own Dalek designs because everybody knows a 14-year-old Doctor Who fanboy knows what's best, am I right? And it's weird to think that literally a couple of seasons later, and still with Matt Smith as the Doctor, we would see this decision almost completely swept under the rug. The reason this was so obviously contentious is because we all know what a Dalek silhouette looks like immediately, and even with the 2005 revamp they still remained pretty similar to what had come before, but then boom! Inflated Daleks. Clearly this was taken to heart, because obviously it's a bit of a violation of some timeless iconography. Back when getting upset about a major change to the fundamentals didn't mean that you're basically just Hitler. And better still, this change was only cosmetic. This really says a lot about our society. And I'm not going to pretend that this video is trying to figure out what happened to them. There's not much to figure out. People complained, Steven Moffat listened, boom, back to the previous model, and as a gesture of goodwill, we're seeing classic series Daleks fairly regularly too. Okay, thanks Mr. Moffat, but I won't lie. When all is said and done, yes, I can understand what I was so worked up about at the time, but really I'm actually kind of grateful to have these Daleks in the Dalek Design back catalogue. I can certainly see what they were getting at with this design. They look very futuristic, efficient, space-agey, and yet retro at the same time, which does suit Doctor Who, although they certainly don't fit in the dark fairy tale era of Doctor Who. They actually fit in more with the Chris Chibnall era. This is not me being smart or anything, but it's got kind of a rainbow colour aesthetic, but I guess they opted for an even worse design for their debut in this one. So I don't know if it's hindsight telling me everything would be okay because they'd switched back, or if my opinions on the Time War Daleks diminished with the lower quality episodes making me more willing to accept a change, or if maybe the look just grew on me. It's probably a mix of those reasons, but do I regret being one of the many who vocalized their opinions on this redesign, even though it technically paid off? It sounds weird, but yes. If all of us would have stayed quiet, I feel like Dalek Stories and Steven Moffat's run on Doctor Who may have played out a bit differently. For starters, the midsection. It's got this line going all through it that links back to a shutter on the back. The idea was that the Dalek weaponry could slide up round it into the shutter and be interchanged with the other appendages. I'm not sure what exactly, all that's ever been mentioned are bigger guns, but I can imagine a claw appendage. It's quite a neat idea to be honest, fitting all that in the skirt section. It's a bit like my vacuum cleaner. It's got that little compartment that you open up and you got the fluffy nozzle that you can use for vacuuming up Season 11. I am my own Dalek, after a trip to Sheffield. They also had a clear idea of what sort of rankings they would have with the new Dalek Paradigm. The drones were red, the strategists were blue, and the scientists were an unsightly orange, and the Eternal was, yellow. And nobody knew what the Eternal was, but it was going to be really important, according to Steven Moffat anyway. I think it actually makes sense now why Steven Moffat Dalek Stories felt so unfinished and restricted. He had a clear plan of what to do with them and how to progress them further with epic transforming Daleks that had their own character roles and purposes, but felt the need to chuck it because he just wanted to please everybody. I feel like had he gone with his instincts, perhaps people, including myself, would have warmed up to the redesign, especially if we'd seen what they were capable of. I was more ready to let go of the Time War Daleks after they'd featured in so many turkeys than I was after seeing how powerful they could be in the series 4 finale. This of course is not me saying, "Hey Moffat, you should have written more bad episodes before the new paradigm." There are a number of things that could have been done though to give the new Dalek Paradigm a better first impression. With any new Dalek comes the assumption that the design is probably made to service toy sales, and I'd certainly say there's an aspect to that, but I don't believe that this was the original plan, as Steven Moffat's plans for them did seem ambitious and to come from a creative place. However, I will say this is just one of those instances where Doctor Who would face obvious accusations and it just didn't help itself. Including the new Dalek Paradigm, alongside the traditional Time War Daleks for their first appearance, was always going to cause controversy because of the immediate comparisons being in plain sight. It means the meat of the story is devoted to the Time War Daleks as opposed to letting the Paradigm ones speak for themselves. We barely saw the Daleks at all in 2009 aside from a brief cameo, so I think had they just sported the redesign from the get-go without an explanation, people would have been a lot happier to just see Daleks again. However, if we insist on following the progenitor plotline of Victory of the Daleks, it would have been wiser to not reveal every Dalek colour scheme all at once, but to introduce us to 4 new red Daleks and a white one, and let them decide their other ranks among themselves later on. This would have silenced the Teletubby and Power Ranger jokes immediately, and given a clearer idea of what to expect from a large group of Daleks in the future. Obviously, it wouldn't all be different colours, we would be seeing more red than any other colour, and it would be kinda exciting to see the new colours put to the test as the episodes progressed. And with all good points, it rhymes. I must also ask, what were they thinking with the plastic gloss paint jobs? Again, that's really not helping the accusations that these were made purely for toy sales. So to address the backlash at first, Steven Moffat called for the new Dalek Paradigms to be an officer class as opposed to the replacement to the Time War Daleks, with a new metallic paint job and the hunched back bit being tweaked in a little to fix their leaning posture. The problem is, seeing all these Daleks in a room together, there's a clear stylistic difference. The two do not mix. Also, how the heck does a Dalek officer class work? And if the Time War Daleks were, as mentioned in Victory, inferior, why did the new Dalek Paradigm breed a load of Time War inferior stock? And now it's time for What I Do, for I have all the facts. Oh come on, it's obvious. It's what everyone wanted. Another Dalek Civil War. Come on, Dalek Civil Wars have made for some of the most entertaining classic Doctor Who stories. And now that we have 2 different versions of the Daleks, one claiming superiority, it makes only sense that a rebel faction of Time War Daleks would go up against them. But Will, the Daleks said in Victory that they're the last free. Do you honestly believe that for even a second? Of all the times the Daleks are rendered extinct, how many times have they actually been extinct? Literally never. You can wipe them out altogether, but they'll still return. I would love to see a Doctor Who story that ends with a Doctor or a companion of sorts finally going back to Genesis of the Daleks to do the deed and prevent them altogether. And then it's the more shocking than ever when they do return. And then we have a big mystery on our hands. Was Genesis of the Daleks all a staged hoax, and where did they actually come from? And just like that, everyone that said I was a better writer than Chris Chibnall is running for the hills. You know how protective Doctor Who fans can be of their show, so I'm not going to touch that idea too much. I've gone well off track. What I'm saying is undoubtedly there are leftover Daleks of pretty much each and every style and form out there. And a way to utilise both the new Dalek Paradigm and the Time War Daleks together, rather than making them an officer class, would be to throw another remembrance of the Dalek style, Dalek War Our Way. And then we could truly see the extent of the Paradigm Dalek's power. After all, why would a Dalek need a bigger gun to dispose of humans? That's pointless. Some kitted out Time War Daleks would have upped their game to take on these guys, and they might just need a bigger gun for them. If you ask me, I would much rather have a really thought out story including nothing but Paradigm Daleks than stories like Asylum of the Daleks bringing the Time War Daleks back. Over time they've certainly lost their X factor that made them so exciting in the first place. But is it too late for a Dalek Civil War with the Paradigm Daleks? Well, I wouldn't say so. There's been no explanation as to what happened to the new Dalek Paradigm in the show, so it's pretty open-ended. Plus, Chris Chibnall was prepared to throw an even worse design our way in Resolution, so I wouldn't say they're below him. Chris Chibnall, get off BuzzFeed, write us a Dalek Civil War story, and if I see one Earth political reference, you're getting roasted. Video brought to you by the RTD gang. So what do you guys think? Are you glad the new Dalek Paradigm were ousted so quickly? What would you like to see? Would you like to see them return for another Dalek Civil War or another story? Leave a comment below, I'd love to know your thoughts, and as always, you can support Channel Pub content by sharing the videos, clicking subscribe, and checking out the Patreon in the description below. What if I told you that every time you do this, an SJW gets their feelings hurt? And if that doesn't tickle your pickle, Piers Morgan gets a strange aftertaste of vegan sausage rolls in his mouth for no reason every time you do. That jerk.